Well, hello. This is just going to be a brief video um, where I'm basically going to quote off the Planetary Annihilation website and forums what some of the updates are in the recent patches, or at least the most notable ones that they have inserted on the forums. I've got a little bit of gameplay going in the background for you. So it's not just me talking. As you can see, I've already built a reasonably substantial base with a fair few things queued, and yes. Okay, right, so way back at version 0.49303, you had weapons are now targeting center of mass, which should improve accuracy and units finding firing solutions. Fixed text entry and UI that should improve escape handling in chat dialogues. Perf improvement late game with large engagements, and floating laser advanced redesign. In 49286, they introduced random planets. You will now get one of 3 different planet biome combos with sizes ranging from 450 meters to 750 meters. A number of performance improvements late game, but you'll still see simulation stutters, but should be better. Recon continues to improve, but you should still see things that you might not be able to. Sound muting is now mapped to control an S. Frame rate clamped to 120 frames per second. Performance improvements in the render pipeline. Sun rendering on AMD should look better. Primary army color is no longer shareable between armies. Exploit fix, you can no longer make changes to client factory and engineer build specs. Fix for units occasionally being built with less than full health. Some camera fixes to improve transitions to and from celestial view. A number of pathing improvements and flow field optimizations. Destroyer has been scaled down to feel more appropriate for the build costs. Frigate redesigned to look more unique from the destroyer. Energy plant scaled down, shouldn't take up as much space in your base now. Tech 2 fabrication ship redesign, floating laser defense redesign, and ongoing balance changes are noted. In 49455, they've noted that a bug, air fabbers do not work. This means no advanced air factories either. Please don't use them. You can build T1 fighters and bombers, but air fabbers and all T2 air are currently broken. We have wired the client for full Steam authentication support. We do not have a key exchange in place yet, but we will soon. After exiting a match, you will no longer be able to create a new game if a new build has been pushed. You must patch before starting a new match. We've added an idle timer for those hanging out in a match for 22 hours. In-game edge scrolling and window mouse constraints. Some fixes in for units moving off factories. More pathing fixes and tuning. Additional flow field performance improvements in complex areas, near crevices for instance. A client will always try to get back to the end of the timeline unless you're in chronocam mode. Units being built no longer provide intel. Projectiles should no longer be visible through fog of war. You should no longer be able to see enemy army build orders. Some targeting improvements and light laser tank should now have an easier hitting structures again. Camera pole locking and hotkey. Hold N to flip the pole lock state, so north is up basically. Ongoing sound work and effects. New sea energy plant art. New land and sea metal storage art. Numerous FX adjustments and fixes. Torpedo launchers now use torpedoes. Numerous balance changes. Build 49499. More mouse lock side scroll options, a lot of random behind the scenes fixes, units should stop falling through the ground, additional fixes for building on factories acting weird, more pathing fixes, new art for sea mine and regular and advanced torpedo launchers, bombers should now acquire targets at sea automatically, not just on land. Build 49595 and 49525. Mac OS X 10.7 and 10.8 support. Game still has some keyboard support needed for basic gameplay, but a significant improvement over even the prior build. Arrow keys work, zooming works more reliably. Some focused improvement aimed at GeForce 9 XXX cards should help across the board, especially older cards. Some camera updates. Main menu button should do something now in the game. First pass of weapon and radar ranges should be in. Press and hold control to see mobile unit structures should always appear when selected. You can target radar blips now. You can no longer select units that are still being built. More sound work, sea and naval focused. Visual redesign of sonar and advanced sonar. Air Faber flying behavior now. No more landing when building. Bombers, advanced bombers, guard radius now matches vision. Current build 49658, date June 17th. Platforms Windows 64-bit and early stage Mac OS X 10. 0.7 and 0.8 and Linux testing. We're working hard to get 32-bit versions out as well, but as of today we don't have clients we can provide for it. XP is not supported and likely will not be. There are .NET dependencies and a number of other issues with this now 13-year-old legacy operating system that makes it almost impossible to support. If you are playing on Linux or Mac at this early stage, please join us on the forums. And yes, right, build 49658, the changes they've put in. Well, it says current build at the top, but they've actually, seems they've put in a new one. Anyway, 49658, this build continues to work on improving the Mac gameplay, but there is still a destabilizing crash, especially on mobile hardware. We're trying to track down, continue to use Mac build with caution. Significant improvements to sim, more to go, but this should be noticeable. New version of Coherent for UI should eliminate some UI crashes. Select boxes should now work on Mac. Shift, Alt, Control, Caps Lock should all work on Mac. Ongoing work to improve pathing. Groups of units shouldn't ignore their orders once a few of them start getting destroyed. Redesign of FabSub. This build and the prior few have a large number of under-the-hood changes that are mostly directed towards better crash logging, so we can fix them quicker. Server perf improvement, camera improvements, network improvement, and a host of soon-to-come online features. As the actual features come online, they'll be called out. And recent updates, which I have only just seen, literally this second, 49731, date June the 18th. Windows 64-bit and early stage Mac Linux testing, ditto as mentioned before, except Mac OS X 10.6 unfortunately cannot be supported due to middleware. Okay, now the changes. Major server performance improvements. You should see significant improvements on sim performance in big games with lots of units. Downside is, if you have a slow connection, you may see serious slowdown, and even with a fat connection, you may see slowdown if the bandwidth throttle limit is reached. However, still a huge gain. More Mac OS X specific fixes. Click select, for instance. More Linux specific fixes. Crash uploading almost ready. Disabling broken vsync, etc. Ongoing sound work. Tactical missile launcher initial implementation is in. Nukes work as well, but do 1 point of damage until we have more time to work on them. Okay, so anyone wants to nuke spam, you'll be needing to build a heck of a lot of nukes, because they do 1 point of damage each. Pathing changes, fixes units moving as though structures aren't there. Remove Fog of War on death so you can spectate if you want to see what's going on. Commander death means game over for now, all your units die too. Major combat balance overhaul. So that's interesting, because that means now that the assassination game mode really is assassination, whereas it was sort of assassination / conquest, in that if your commander dies and well, basically, if there's only one commander left on the planet, that person wins, regardless of whether you have stuff left, but you can still build stuff. But that seems to have been fixed now, which is good. So I hope that has given you an insight as to how the game is developing, and I will now sort of skip back to my gameplay and sort of leave you with that. And I might attempt to discuss what I'm doing, although I haven't been following that. I've been looking at the forums and quoting directly off there. That is another point, by the way, that was all quoted directly off the forums, and I hope it sort of provides an insight. Right, so obviously what I'm doing in this game at the moment is trying to make a push towards this little AI red enclave. The thing is, the AI don't actually, well, there is no actual AI as such, because they haven't implemented it yet. So what they do, if there is a player slot unoccupied, they put in an AI and basically give it a standard enclave like that, and basically it does nothing. It sits there and waits for you to kill it. So it's pretty good for if you want to just test build orders, test units, and see if there are any bugs or other things that you might want to have a look into. Especially for an alpha build, this is very useful if you don't want to have to, you know, rush through online games, etc. Right, so here you can see me replenishing my vehicle army supply, which I will need for whenever I find the final enclave, or shall I say little base. I believe I'm using scouts now to do such an intel sweep. Oh, and there it is, so now I do know where green is. So now I can pretty much build up units and do various different things with it. I'm not sure if you are seeing what I'm seeing, but I see a duplicated mouse pointer. I do believe this might be because of the recording, although in the game I didn't actually see this. So do not worry about that, it's not actually in the game. It was obviously some form of error in the recording or even display. So there you can see me trying to bolster my metal income to try and mass produce at the same time, and there I'm also going to go and build another naval factory, although I misclicked and am now building the correct advanced naval factory just because I want to. Of course the naval units that I could produce out of there are not going to have anywhere near the required amount of range. So here I can, for some reason, I'm testing what the walls look like or how they build. As soon as we have the click drag mechanic for walls, that will be a lot easier than what we had in the original Supreme Commander, which was sort of single unit walls at a time. Or maybe if they could implement that, that would sort of help a lot more, and maybe entice people to use walls a bit more, because, well, they're a bit clunky if you ask me at the moment. But then again, it's alpha, and as you can see from this, I haven't mentioned it until now, but I am running 49595, so going back to what I was just reading off, you can see what changes had been implemented and what had not. Now you can see there I was building metal and energy storage to increase my reserves so that I can mass produce and actually hopefully keep a positive economy for a bit longer before going into absolute zero and stalling. As you can see now, my metal is going negative, but hopefully that should remedy itself in good time. And as my vehicular army begins to take shape, I also gather all my bots and my bombing armada, all ready for the final push to green, which should happen within the next few minutes. But as you can see, this base, I've managed to put up a reasonable amount of defense. This is something that I've been trying to work on in my sort of whole gameplay strategy, because normally I just tend to sort of build a few factories and focus on metal and energy, and not actually build units or even defenses, so that when the push comes to shove and people do start attacking me, I get obliterated pretty darn fast, despite having a reasonably pretty base. So here I've sort of practiced getting my build order set so that I do have all of this defense, I do have this mass producing economy. But now we do have the bombers going off to the side to maybe push down when the time is right, when they're not going to take the full force of all of those point defense. Again, just moving all the units into one spot so that we can make one final big push. I'm not quite sure why that one's alone, but he's going to go and join the rest of the group. And I think the bombers got a little bit too close and were all taken out. This is a little bit unfortunate. And I did notice at the time, sort of, hold on, why did they do that? But I did have a reasonably large army incoming anyway, so it shouldn't really matter too much. Again, the next couple of minutes are going to be filled with just building this army up, not a huge amount extra, because well, I'm preparing for the final push. There's not much else that actually needs doing now. I've got a economically viable base, and yes, here we go. We're pushing in for the final kill. And as you can see, the pathfinding is a little bit dubious in terms of some of these tanks going sideways, but then again it's probably an early implemented build of a flow field system, and some of those artillery projectiles do look like people are throwing potato sacks. But all the same, it looks blooming cool. What a friend of mine and I were discussing a few days ago is, for long-range projectiles, we thought it would be pretty quite cool if the game could implement some form of physics engine that would incorporate the Coriolis effect. I'm not sure if it does this, or whether they even plan to do this, but I will be making a suggestion on the forums in the next couple of days and see if they reply or not. And as you could see, I decided to obliterate the enemy commander and win the battle. So on that note, folks, I will say thank you very much for watching this update video. I hope it has been useful and insightful, so that you can see quite where the builds are coming along, and I will keep updating with these sorts of videos every 2-3 builds or so, depending on whether they are large massive changes or whether they're, performance improvements and smaller things like that. I mean, the latest one, adding in nukes and tactical missile launcher improvements, that's reasonably major, along with the major combat balance overhaul. So again, I will say this for the last time now, thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.